Thank you to my patrons for making this video possible. Go to patreon.com/thewatercooler to get full access to my podcast and support my work. 500 spots are open for just $1 a month. On September 26, 2018, season 37 of CBS's reality competition series Survivor aired. Now, this video is not about Survivor, I promise, but I genuinely think that, especially in its first 20 or so seasons, Survivor is phenomenal television that gets at some fascinating and unsettling truths about human social behavior. Episode 5 of its first season features the first ever blindside, which is now as common as
go, go, go. All right, here we go. Here we go. Next round. Next round. All right, next round. Next round.
But this first blindside, it was shocking, and there was something kind of horrifying about it.
Here. That's 3 votes. We don't need to read the last one. Travis spoke. It's time for you to go.
All right. Guys,
bye.
Good luck.
Scary, right? The show's premise: put 20 or so Americans in a remote area where they have to fend for themselves, with medical supervision, camera crews, and evacuations at the ready in case there's a legitimate safety issue.
Pat, can you hear me? It's Jeff.
Compete in physical and mental challenges against the opposing tribe. Every 3 days, one person will be voted off the island by their peers, and the last person standing will be awarded $1 million. Does most of the work. The contestants, by and large, create the drama themselves. The lens is so scary on this camera. Okay. It's like I'm in 2001. They form alliances, double cross, triple cross, sabotage, blackmail, kindle romance, lie, cheat, and steal in order to win. Of course, it's still a reality show. There are additional elements from the editors and producers that influence the game and our perception of these people. Nonetheless, I do find many seasons have a compelling and revealing depiction of how we interact with one another, especially when wealth is on the line. In its first few seasons, the series subtitle would just be the location they filmed in, like Australia, the Amazon, or Panama. But later seasons started having themes like Millennials versus Gen X, Edge of Extinction, Heroes versus Healers versus Hustlers, Heroes versus Villains. The best season, if you were wondering. Honestly, like the best season of television ever. True Detective Season 1, garbage compared to Season 20 of Survivor. The Wire, amateurs. Twin Peaks The Return, you can stay. Season 37's theme was David versus Goliath. The tribes were divided into underdogs and overachievers. For example, Nick from the David tribe grew up in a trailer park, lost his mom to an opioid addiction, and is now a public defender. Also, apparently, he accidentally tried legalizing sex between first cousins in Kentucky. Happens to the best of us. Whereas the Goliath tribe had Angelina, who has degrees from Stanford and Yale.
Natalie, is there any way I could have your jacket?
Allison, a doctor whose father is also a doctor. And John, a professional wrestler otherwise known as
Johnny Blaze, Johnny Spade, Johnny Nitro, John Morrison, Johnny Mundo, Johnny Impact, Johnny Ultra, the Shaman of Sexy, the Monday Night Delight, the Ambassador at Abdominals, the Maharaja of Manliness, the George Bushy of Tushy, the Mayor of Slamtown, Mr. Abraham Lincoln.
The division was made on lines of either social class or perceived social aptitude. Jeff, the host, you know who Jeff Probst is, throughout the season tries to make like the theme tie into every moment at tribal council and the challenges.
This is really why that story of David versus Goliath is one of the greatest metaphors for improbable victories.
Angelina, do you believe it's still David versus Goliath?
It's a showdown right now between David and Goliath.
And spoiler alert, it honestly pays off seeing someone from the David tribe win the whole season.
The winner, Survivor, David versus Goliath.
The story of the underdog is ancient. There's something innately gratifying about watching someone overcome all the odds and obstacles and succeed in their goal. I mean, it's like most stories. Jesus, he was an underdog, one could say. But that premise, someone overcoming obstacles, does lead to the question, what obstacles? Who put them there? Why? Previous Survivor contestants have spoken about the psychological impact being on the show can have.
A woman came up to me at the ice cream shop in Santa Monica, and she was like, "We love to hate you at my house." And I was like, okay. I didn't think through this is going to be on TV and everyone's going to have an opinion. People are going to love me or hate me. And that was it. Like, I was a really polar character, and everyone called me a character. And I was like, oh, your character is so bad, or your character we love. And I'm like, but it's actually me.
Right.
So.
You're like, this is a real reality show.
Yeah.
Feeling forced to be deceitful and manipulative in order to survive. Sorry, the game. It makes you question yourself, your values, your integrity, your own capacity for cruelty and deception. But Survivor is ultimately a reality competition, right? The premise, loosely based off Lord of the Flies, is contrived. There is a crucial context to any given season, and that context mainly boils down to this is being made for an audience's entertainment, and these people want to win $1 million. Premise and context. Like I said, when watching Survivor, it's important to keep in mind before judging or not judging too harshly.
Except for this motherfucker. I don't have time to get into it, but no context needed. Fuck this.
But there's a premise and context to everything, right?
Coconut.
This video you're watching right now, I'm laying down premise and context that will influence how you and I perceive everything else that I say for the rest of the video. After all, this is not a video about Survivor, I promise. There are endless underlying structures and contexts that embed themselves into every moment of our lives, including our interactions with everyone. But again, what are those structures? Who or what established them? And for what purpose?
For me, I'm a Survivor obsessive fanatic. Everybody in my business wants the Oscar. It's like, you're losers. Like, I want to win Survivor.
Mike White was already an accomplished film and television writer by the time he competed in season 37 of Survivor, having written School of Rock, Nacho Libre, episodes of Freaks and Geeks, the Emoji Movie, and created, wrote, directed, and acted in the HBO comedy series Enlightened. A member of the Goliath tribe, Mike stood out as witty, disarming, and deceptively smart.
Ow.
Bitch.
He played a social game of subtlety, mainly flying under the radar while always remaining in the group that held the power, even when that group shifted and evolved countless times. He was the runner-up of David vs. Goliath, a season that hinged on the dichotomy between the haves and the have-nots, and that got him thinking.
In a long-form interview with Vulture, White is asked how Survivor plays into his artistic life.
You see how people bungle having power, how the oppressed becomes the oppressor, the bully becomes the bullied. All the different strategies of Survivor felt like they were analogous to whatever I was going through. When you grow up watching scripted things, there's a lot of tropes, there's a lot of cliches, there's a lot of religiosity around humanity. Even in the best scripted dramas, I sense a little of that. The first season of Survivor, these people were like straight out of life, so funny and complex, and also very base and human. There's humanity here because we're humans, but there's something very honest about what goes on in that playing field that, as a dramatist, I find very inspiring.
And inspired he was. After all, this is a video about the White Lotus. On July 11th, 2021, Season 1 of HBO's dark satire, The White Lotus, premiered. Written and directed entirely by Mike White, the first season took us to Hawaii, specifically to a luxury resort on the island of Maui, and follows 3 separate groups of vacationers and the resort's employees over the course of a week. The series was met with critical acclaim, citing the incisive psychosocial commentary, nuanced performances from the entire ensemble, and existential themes of colonialism, wealth, environmentalism, racism, to name a handful. I watched the show in 2 days. I was engrossed, to say the least. It felt like the show was exploring concepts and perspectives and arguments that, when they're touched on in the mainstream, usually fall victim to
The discourse.
black and white thinking, dog piles, condescension, moralizing, with not a ton of room to actually discuss these universal issues and question the underlying power structures that not only uphold, but enforce systems that actively harm all of us. But on White Lotus, White's voice is so clear and rooted in a deep empathy for all the characters and by extension humanity that the series reaches for something higher. And just as a quick aside before we start getting into the meat of it, I want to get a few things out of the way. So yeah, this is the disclaimer section of the video. You know, I'm on my hands and knees begging you to not scream at me, which is just an exercise in futility when it comes to YouTube, but I'm begging you. I am just absolutely begging you to not scream at me when I inevitably get something wrong. You probably don't like the sound of my voice or my face or the words coming out of it, you know, and neither do I. So we're in the same boat, you know, we're alike in that way. I'll be discussing some heavy and intense topics related to the show, like colonialism, class, tourism, racism, and a whole lot more. I obviously cannot, will not, and probably should not attempt to provide an airtight, academic, entirely thorough analysis of like the entire history of colonialism or even colonialism in Hawaii. The same goes for explaining the origins of class and modern day structures of socioeconomic class. I am not a historian, an economist, sociologist, anthropologist. I am nothing with an ist suffix. I am a humble YouTuber, and nothing I say regarding class or colonialism should be taken as the entire story. I have no desire to be a political YouTuber. I have neither the intellect nor the ego, but the best television tends to be a reflection of some underlying truth of our world and existence, and so politics influence can't be ignored. Not to mention, The White Lotus is a highly political show. Like with all my videos, I'm going to have a list at the end with work cited / consulted, so that's just everything that I read, whether I quote it or not. So if you're interested in learning more about anything I talk about, maybe just start there and then, I don't know, do your own research. Don't trust YouTubers. Okay. I have a film degree and a political science minor, a minor I just got so I could better argue with my dad, honestly. And my goal with this video and with all my videos where I'm doing a deep dive into a series is to look at the show and try to answer, what is this show saying? What is the point? How is it making the point? I don't go into watching a movie or show or reading a book thinking,
I really hope this piece of art endorses and advocates for my pre-existing beliefs.
Crikey, mate.
Crikey.
no, that's fucking boring. And I'm so sorry to any Australian viewers. I want to be challenged. I want to be asked questions I hadn't considered. I want it to say something. And when I make these videos, the only thing I'm really advocating for is my analysis of the show. What it's saying, why it's relevant, and how it communicates that message. Note that this does not include whether what a show is saying is right or wrong. I don't really care about right or wrong. I have a severe lack of empathy for others. Like with my Sharp Objects video, I got a comment that I don't even know was like accusing me of disparaging the American South and Southerners because I explained how the show and the show's writers depicted Wind Gap, a fictional Southern town. I, Nick, me, hello, didn't give my opinion on the South in that video. I offered my analysis of how Wind Gap specifically is shown and its relation to the themes of Sharp Objects. Go watch the video and don't forget to smash that like button. Body slam subscribe. Well, wasn't that fun? In my opinion, The White Lotus does not carry the thesis statement, eat the rich. While highly critical of excessive wealth and class hierarchies, Mike White manages to never condemn his characters or make them out to be unsympathetic egomaniacs. Yes, I include Shane in that as well. To an extent. Instead, The White Lotus dissects the often invisible degradation our modern day structures of social class, which are largely stratified along economic lines, and the privileges those structures create for some, has on our values, our relationships, and our own humanity.
I'd always wanted to do a show just that kind of got into money and how money basically can like pervert even like our most intimate relationships and how money has such a like influence on, yeah, just even the, you know, like within marriages, within the interactions with like strangers and friends and loved ones and all of that.
So what is class? Socioeconomics. These big ass words I have no business using. For some of you, this might be some basic 101 shit, so I thank you for sticking with me. There's the simple breakdown of upper, middle, lower class. There's the 99% versus the 1%. But what we're ultimately talking about is wealth. How does wealth divide us into these groups? How is that wealth statistically distributed across a population? And how does wealth affect our social dynamics at a cultural, demographical, and interpersonal level? Michael Balter explains in an American Association for the Advancement of Science article.
That's right, Michael. I'm doing the thing. Leave me alone.
Most researchers agree that social hierarchies began with the advent of farming. The earliest known farming communities are found in the Near East, dating back almost 11,000 years.
He discusses a team of archaeologists headed up by Alexander Bentley from the University of Bristol studying the tooth enamel of skeletons across Europe who are part of the farming community Linear Bandkeramik. Maybe that's how you say it. I think I said that right. German for linear pottery culture between 5500 and 4500 BC. Linear Bandkammer. I have so much spit in my mouth. By studying the tooth enamel of these Neolithic farmers, the archaeologists were able to determine the type of soil these farmers would have lived on. And soil does not come equally. Apparently, I learned a lot more about strontium atoms and soil quality than I expected. If you lived on land that had soil which yielded a better crop, you were significantly more likely to live a better life than those losers down the hill with a less desirable strontium 87 to strontium 86 ratio in their soil.
Some, but not all males, were buried with stone tools called adzes, which were thought to be used to build the wooden houses in which the farmers lived.
Use of the tools for some male burials positively correlate. And now I just sound bored. Use of the tools for some male burials positively correlates with the tooth enamel data, aka soil quality, showing that men on more fertile soil had better burials, indicating a type of hierarchy based on wealth, and their sons would then inherit their land. The late British archaeologist Neil Faulkner has a video on the origins of class on his YouTube channel that you should check out. He argues that for the first time in human history during the first agricultural revolution, there were instances of production outpacing the needs of a population, aka a surplus. However, these Neolithic communities remained under resource anxiety and a scarcity mentality, which means they had to invest their resources effectively.
Now, in those situations, if you've got a surplus and you're a well-organized community and you have those anxieties, you begin to invest some of your resources in creating specialists who have the job of managing the community and defending the community against potential aggressors. Surplus is given to them to enable them to carry out their functions as rulers, as war leaders.
And the rest is literally history. Class is a hot topic today. Of course, people were talking about it before. In terms of recent memory, with the Occupy Wall Street movement protesting corporate greed back in 2008 following the Great Recession, the 2016 presidential run of independent Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders centered on economic inequality, the rise of the online left.
You're not affiliated with me.
And just the way diverse sources of information are now readily accessible through the internet, I feel like there's been a general increase in awareness around class. Why? Well, to put it simply, people feel like they're getting utterly fucked over. I think most Americans have a deep-seated emotional dissatisfaction with the way things are going. They feel a problem, maybe even subconsciously, and want an answer. If you're an idiot, you might think the problem is like minorities destroying the social fabric of our divine Western civilization. And lucky for you, there are plenty of other idiots willing to indulge your delusions.
So what is a woman?
No desire to be a political YouTuber.
Alternatively, you may think it's a problem that people die in this country because they can't afford healthcare. A popular video from YouTuber Politizane from 2012 visualizes how Americans think wealth is distributed, how 9 out of 10 of those Americans think wealth should be distributed, and how wealth is actually distributed.
And here is the actual distribution, shockingly skewed. Not only do the bottom 20% and the next 20%, the bottom 40% of Americans barely have any of the wealth. I mean, it's hard to even see them on the chart. But the top 1% has more of the country's wealth than 9 out of 10 Americans believe the entire top 20% should have.
Again, that video is from 2012 and it hasn't exactly gotten better. in the last 12 years. People feel like they're getting fucked because they are. And severe wealth inequality that creates vastly different life circumstances for those in varying class groups is a potential answer. Parasite, Triangle of Sadness, Mr. Robot, Succession, Severance. Popular film and television has reflected this awareness. Whether talking about it explicitly or metaphorically, there's clearly an audience for these stories. A crucial aspect of these are their settings, the contrast between Homes and Parasite, the yacht turned shipwreck in Triangle, the corporate skyscrapers of Mr. Robot in Succession, the hellacious, sterile basement offices in Severance.
So let's talk about settings. So I'd written, recorded, and edited this entire section, and then John Oliver decided to do a whole episode on it. So I don't know if you just want to go watch that, but I don't know. I worked hard on it.
When the average American thinks about Hawaii, they probably think about this. Maybe they think about Lost. I know I do. I think about that show every fucking day.
We have to go back.
I visited Oahu when I was 18 and can confirm one of the most naturally beautiful places I've ever been. The unique geography infused with Hawaiian culture creates a truly singular experience that I could only really compare to my time in the Azores, the Portuguese archipelago in the Atlantic my grandparents are from. Also, the traffic in Honolulu is horrific. One study said it was the worst in the country. But while I loved the week that I spent there, it's impossible to walk around Waikiki Bay, home to world-class dining and shopping, and not think about the poverty-stricken neighborhoods you drove past 15 minutes ago, which tend to be populated with Native Hawaiians. In fact, Native Hawaiians are the most likely ethnic group in the state to be living in poverty, a staggering 27%. Leis, tiki sculptures, grass skirts, luau's, Hawaiian shirts all decorate the commercial spaces, designed to lure in tourists and permeate a vague sense of exotic culture. Anthropology and gender studies professor Jane Desmond says in her article, Invoking the Native, Body Politics in Contemporary Hawaiian Tourist Shows,
the tension between the urban setting of Waikiki and the invocation of a non-urban paradise is further modulated by the selling of Hawaiiana.
She goes on to describe how Hawaiian culture and language is flattened in these tourist settings. It's been bastardized by the economic interests of non-Hawaiians. The White Lotus was filmed at the Four Seasons in Maui, and do you think Native Hawaiians own and profit from that Four Seasons? No? Let's do a quick Google search and find out who owns the Four Seasons. Oh, cool. Love to see that. Four Seasons declined to comment on this video, and I'm dead serious. They actually did decline. When I flew back to the mainland after my trip, one of the thoughts buzzing around in my dumbass 18-year-old head was, wait, why is that a state? When you're in like elementary school and you're looking at a map of the US, it's like, okay, cool. So this slice of the continent is the US, and then off in the corner is Hawaii, which is so far away from the rest of the country that they have to cut it out of the Pacific and then paste it into the corner. To give a too brief and too shallow account of Hawaiian history as it relates to the White Lotus, Polynesians settled in Hawaii around 1500 years ago. In 1778, John Cook became the first known European to visit the islands, introducing Hawaii to the Western world. Oh no. American and European businessmen and settlers began taking advantage of Hawaii's natural resources in the 19th century, namely sugar, as well as its strategic military positioning in the middle of the Pacific.
Following some shady treaties and economic destabilization, the businessmen conspired with the backing of American government officials to overthrow the monarchy in 1893 and annex the archipelago in 1898.
What happened next can be described as a cultural genocide of the Hawaiian people. English was the only language allowed in public schools, leading to the rapid decline of native speakers. According to Wikipedia, in 2001, only 0.1% of the state's population were native speakers, and it's considered an endangered language.
Last year, while writing this video, I got in touch with my friend Malia, the friend I visited in Hawaii when I was 18, who was raised in Oahu, for kind of just a wide-ranging discussion about a ton of questions that I had. And apologies for her poor audio. I wasn't expecting to use this.
In front of, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we haven't even talked about similar to literally every other native population, there was a big period of time where hula was not allowed, where the native Hawaiian language was not allowed. When I was growing up, there was a huge resurgence to try and bring back the Hawaiian language. So there was a lot of my classmates who were taking.
When you were growing up? Oh my God. Okay. Sorry.
I have classmates whose parents actively were like trying to teach them Hawaiian at a very young age so that they could try and revive this language that was dying. It's heartbreaking. It's like, so it's like on top of all of that, it's like you're being asked to perform this thing that not only has been taken away from you, but you've been told that you can't have it for yourself.
Oh, I think it's just a way for them to honor their culture.
Hawaii eventually became the 50th state in 1959.
It's made official at the White House. President Eisenhower congratulates the new congressional representatives of Hawaii before the simple ceremonies that remake the geography of the United States, adding the 50th and southernmost state with a land area of 6,500 miles and a population of 600,000.
In 93, a century after the overthrow of the Hawaiian Kingdom, President Bill Clinton signed the Apology Resolution, apologizing to the Hawaiian people for the American government's involvement. How thoughtful. Wikipedia, again coming in with the roast, represents one of the few times that the United States government has formally apologized for its actions. Great.
In fact, a petition was signed by 55% of Hawaiians opposing the annexation.
There were rebellions, sometimes violent, fighting against the American occupation. If you're interested in learning more about the history of Hawaii and Native resistance, I highly recommend the book Aloha Betrayed: Native Hawaiian Resistance to American Colonialism, the Timeline documentary on YouTube, Hawaii, the Stolen Paradise, and Al Jazeera's several videos on the current fight for sovereignty. And just in terms of the economics of it all, well, according to 2019 Census Bureau data, the median family income of Native Hawaiians in Hawaii is 13% less than the state average, their per capita income is 29% less than the state average, and the percentage of Native Hawaiians with a bachelor's degree or higher is 18.3%, the lowest out of all other major ethnic groups in the state, and 45% less than the state average. So when we watch The White Lotus, this violent colonial history, current economic paradigm, and mainstream cultural understanding of Hawaii is present. It's swimming below the surface of the story, embedding itself into our understanding of what's actually happening on screen. Okay, history lesson over. This is a video about The White Lotus. As I mentioned, The White Lotus was filmed at the Four Seasons in Maui, one of the best resorts in the world.
Welcome to your 5-star, 5-diamond luxury suite at Four Seasons Resort Maui at Wailea.
I was curious what the real-life White Lotus in Maui does to acknowledge Hawaiian history and culture, and through trying to figure out what exactly I wanted to say in this section about the resort itself, its importance in the show, I fell down a rabbit hole on the Four Seasons Maui website. I looked into their response to the Maui wildfires. I watched YouTube tours, looked into the pricing. I did what we call a deep dive. But honestly, none of it really helped me assemble my thoughts into anything coherent. So I asked one of my script consultants for help, and he said, well, the resort is just like physically embodying what happened. And that really helped. Thank you, Dan. I love you. I love you with all my heart. Because the resort is what happened. The history I just mentioned led directly to probably the nicest resort chain in the world opening 5 locations alone in Hawaii. Exorbitant prices only a minuscule fraction of the world can afford. Certainly Native Hawaiians are not the top demographic visiting the Four Seasons, with a sprinkle of Hawaiian culture throughout the hotel.
I got the Hawaii 5-0 bowl. It's basically an acai bowl, so it has acai, coconut, banana, gluten-free granola, hemp seeds, goji berries, and local honey.
I even looked up the property's history because I wanted to know who owned it prior, but the earliest record I could find is that Four Seasons bought it in 1990 for $100 million. Adjusted for inflation, that's about $236 million today. That's a fuckload of money. And so at least they're paying $4 million in property taxes. My point is that these resorts, companies,
corporations
capitalize on an existing paradigm because their only reason to exist is to create profit for their shareholders, which, again, in this case, are Bill Gates and Prince Al-Walid bin Talal. Corporations like Four Seasons don't operate with a moral compass. The only reason to include bits of a non-Hawaiian stereotypical understanding of Hawaiian culture is to create the illusion for tourists and guests who pay for it.
Nature, Quinn, nature.
I didn't see anything in my research about Four Seasons directly donating to the several relief funds for the wildfires last year, but they did offer a package where $125 to $200 per night, depending on which room you're in, of your stay will be donated, and they offered a 50% match to employees who would like to donate. They also featured local chefs from Lahaina, a town that was decimated, every Sunday in their Love for Lahaina pop-ups. $95 per person for a 3-course meal. I don't know if that money was directly donated to the relief funds or how much of it went to the chefs. I don't know. It's also worth noting that according to the Four Seasons Maui general manager, around 80% of Maui's economy is tourism.
How are you doing? Like, what's the current status? Is it okay if I come?
Sure. Yeah. It's obviously been a very trying time the last 2 months. And that question is there. There's a lot of curiosity. Should I come back to Maui? And the answer is absolutely. The island is open. It's really just the small town of Lahaina that is obviously closed, but all of West Maui, South Maui, East Maui, where Hana is fully open and ready for people to come back.
And the tourism is such an important part of the local economy on the island.
It is. I mean, tourism is 80% of our island. So there's so many jobs that rely on tourism. That Aloha spirit, welcoming people to the island is super, super strong. So by tourists coming back and staying on the island, they're contributing, and that's the best way that they can make the best contributions.
And 35% of Hawaiians work in the tourism industry, which are mostly low-wage jobs. We see all of this in the show itself. The rooms are themed like Palm Suite, Pineapple Suite, and the trade winds. The native employees perform a luau for the guests at dinner. Little bits of Hawaii are scattered throughout the decor, all to impart the feeling of having visited and experienced a different culture on the guests. And then we find out that the land the White Lotus was built on was directly stolen from native Hawaiians, and one of them now works for the hotel. But we'll get back to that.
And many women in my generation very much admire Hillary Clinton.
Okay, don't worry about it, Mom. We all love Hillary Clinton.
Do you see how that's selfish, Mark?
Well, I think he took it pretty well.
Selfish in regards to me. To me.
Why am I the fucking punching bag? All I do is everything I possibly can. And just because I fucking hold everything fucking together, everybody gets to fucking poke?
The Mossbachers. Nicole, Mark, Olivia, and Quinn. Nicole is the breadwinner of the family. Essentially, she's the CFO of Google, called like Poof in the show or something, having recently been promoted to the C-suite. The exact income disparity between Nicole and Mark, her husband, is never specified, but based on this Los Angeles Times article from 2016, I imagine Mark's wealth is like less than 5% of Nicole's. Olivia, their 19-year-old daughter, has invited her friend from college, Paula, whose expenses have been paid for by the Mossbachers.
And I'm so appreciative, Nicole.
Unfortunately, I love these girls so much. They would have torn Portia apart, and I'd love to see it. Rounding out the Mossbacher family is 16 or 17-year-old Quinn, a Gen Z loner who's genuinely addicted to technology and perhaps porn.
Don't sex shame him.
Nicole is a wildly successful businesswoman in a mainly male-dominated corporate world. Her job seems beyond stressful. We often see her working while being on vacation, and despite all that, still perform all the stereotypically maternal duties for the family. She's sending emails, telling the kids to keep the main room tidy, getting on Zoom, altering the feng shui of the room, sending more emails, buying Quinn a new phone when his gets wrecked by the ocean, more emails, and intently studying the potentially cancerous balls on her concerned husband.
I haven't seen him in a while.
She runs the show. When they arrive at the resort and are greeted by Armond, the resort manager, Nicole is the one answering all of Armand's questions, with Mark in the back only offering,
"Happy to be here."
It's subtle and on its own not even worth mentioning, but throughout the show we see that Nicole leads the family, while Mark, for the most part, just kind of bumbles around. Initially, we think she holds the power in terms of the emotional dynamic in her marriage.
Mark, whatever it is, you're gonna be fine. People get cancer. They deal with it. It's not like it was when your dad had it.
She holds the economic power, but interestingly, that doesn't seem to be an issue for Mark.
Is this about Mom making more money than you?
No, it's not about that. What?
He defends Nicole when Olivia accuses her of participating in the collapse of the social fabric.
She runs one of the most profitable search engines in America. And she's made it as a woman in a male-dominated culture. It's very cool.
But the defense is that Nicole is a woman, therefore, like, she's good. That's it. Neither Nicole nor Mark allow any space to be critical, not necessarily of Nicole and her work ethic, but of the effect Nicole's company has on the world. Not that I think that Olivia has pure intentions or a coherent criticism in the moments she challenges her mom, but a larger conversation not even being allowed comes across as defensive. Nicole is proud of the effort she's put into her career. Clearly it's paid off. So the idea of interrogating where that effort is going toward, it's too uncomfortable to even entertain. When Rachel's article mentions lawsuits against Nicole's company, alluding to allegations of sexual misconduct, Nicole is immediately defensive.
No, you made it out like I got my promotion because of optics. She rode the Me Too wave, bullshit like that.
Well, I couldn't not mention the lawsuits.
She's saying subtextually, no, the system works and I am where I am not because of optics, but because I am highly competent and exceptional in my work, which again, probably true. But her inability to entertain the possibility that maybe a major international corporation promoting a woman to the C-suite following publicized lawsuits alleging sexual misconduct from former female employees had nothing to do with optics speaks to her core belief. The corporate machine that she operates within is an objective meritocracy. We obviously can't read Rachel's article.
Well, it was repurposing someone else's profile.
But Nicole doesn't deny any of the facts presented. She only takes issue with how she was depicted.
But you didn't have to make me come across like I was some kind of Machiavellian Gorgon using the victimization of the other women in my company just to further my own craven ambitions. I climbed a hellish ladder on my own, working my ass off. I didn't ride some wave.
Which flabbergasts Rachel.
Didn't read like that.
I mean,
when she mentions having to climb a hellish ladder to get where... Oh, God. I live in Mad Max. When she mentions having to climb a hellish ladder to get where she is, I don't know. I find that an interesting and unintentional admission on her part. She acknowledges that the corporate hierarchy is hell, but since she came out on top and is now partially controlling it, it can't be questioned. Nicole's entire ideology feels like a defense mechanism. She can't really reckon with multiple truths that feel like they're in opposition to each other. She earned her place as CFO, but the lawsuits also probably played a role in that promotion. She has to work while on vacation and still be the organized mom. She loves her family, but it feels like that love only goes in one direction. She loves her husband, and he had an affair. Mark, in an effort to get close with Quinn, reveals that he had an affair a few years ago. By peeling off this layer of Nicole and Mark's marriage, our assumptions are upended. He isn't just some bumbling buffoon taking the back seat. He's also inflicted severe pain on Nicole, his marriage, and his family. And Nicole's pain also takes a backseat as she tries to just keep it all together, both for her family and herself.
because I'm still in a lot of pain.
I know we're just on the first character, but moments like this are the reason I love the show so much. We've gone through the season thus far thinking Mark, God, he's really catching some strays in this video, but deserved. Is a bit of an idiot dealing with his own crisis of masculinity, comparing sex with Nicole to...
You know, like when they do one of those food challenges on a reality show, you know, where they gotta like eat like a bowl of live worms, and you gotta psych yourself up for it. You're like, I can do this. Just hold my nose and like suck it down as fast as I can so I don't gag.
And Nicole is this corporate power mom who loves Hillary Clinton.
We all love Hillary Clinton.
I'm just chilling in Cedar Rapids.
And is entirely disinterested in intimacy with Mark. The show frames us to be more on Mark's side, regardless of his faults, because, well, he's funny. You know, he's worried about his cancerous balls, his dead gay cat. He's trying to get close with his iPad addicted son. Nicole is not portrayed as, and God, I hate this word, likable. What I mean by that is that we, the audience, don't have a lot to sympathize with her. She's insanely wealthy, hostile and defensive when her ideology is threatened, says that boys are sex shamed all the time now, and she can't even hire any young white guys for her company. She's not relatable and doesn't have a core pain that lets us root for her, or at the very least empathize. So when we do get that core pain that is motivating her character, our understanding of everything is retroactively flipped. Despite her success and providing an insanely comfortable living for her family, she gets nothing in return. Her kids don't like being around her, which is normal for that age, but it still hurts. They mock and taunt her, and not only does her husband have an affair that she's trying to forgive him for, he breaks their agreement to not tell the kids. Nicole's emotional needs have been starved by the people in her life she needs support from the most, and in such a callous and selfish manner. Externally, Nicole presents her marriage as something positive, something she's in control of, an overall net benefit to her life. But internally and behind closed doors, it's this crater of a wound she can't face because of what it might say about herself. That she's not good enough, that the work she's done hasn't amounted to anything, that everything she's provided to Mark has been in vain, not appreciated, and thrown away.
I just need someone in my life to respect me, you know?
Are you serious?
Oh, come on. Come on.
This parallels her response to Rachel's article, which threatened the very pillars she measures her own success by. Expanding on that thought, her relationship with Mark is identical to her relationship to her corporate job, and by extension, her class and privilege. Something she presents as, for lack of a better phrase, a good thing in her life. The hurt at the root of her marriage in this current moment is also the root pain of that hellish ladder she's so proud to have climbed. This man she's given everything to, who then goes behind her back and compares their sex to Fear Factor, centers his own feelings in his own pain before even considering hers beyond.
She almost left me.
These are all the fears Nicole has not only about her marriage, but her job, which she's so intrinsically tied together with her self-worth. Has this job I've given everything to promoted me only because I'm a woman for PR, and ultimately doesn't care about me as a person beyond what revenue I can generate? Either for the business or for the family. Nicole is either unable or unwilling to recognize her class privilege in any meaningful way. She falls back on, I'm a woman in a male-dominated industry, as her only defense against her complicity in upholding and participating in the system. She thinks the fight for equality essentially boils down to wanting more token identities, women, people of color, queer people, at the table of tyranny.
No, that's just you, Mom.
But she's disinterested in if that table of tyranny should even exist in the first place. Her personal philosophy.
It's gonna be good news. Good things happen to good people.
It's not a family of mice that burrowed inside my ball sack. It's cancer. Or maybe even something worse. He's like a real alpha. Yeah, he's tough.
Your dad didn't die from cancer.
It's tough on me. Okay, what did he die from?
I know we've been dragging Mark so far, and again, deserved, but let's peel back those layers of the onion. Who is this guy? What's his deal?
What's going on here?
The first time we really meet Mark is when he's displaying his enlarged testicles to Nicole in a shot Ari Aster could only dream of. Mark is concerned about cancer in his balls. Specifically, he's worried that his balls have cancerous balls.
Swole balls.
Nicole isn't really worried. She brings up the great point that they're constantly making innovation in the search for a cure for cancer.
And you know what? They're making breakthroughs every day. It's like a non-stop parade of progress.
We learn that Mark's father also died of cancer when he was a teenager, furthering his current existential spiral. He's worried that his son will also be a fatherless teenage boy.
Being a young man, this time right now can't be easy. Why? Because we can't harass girls anymore? No. Well, yeah.
Mark's crisis of masculinity is his primary motivator throughout the season, symbolized by his rotting testicles. And we're reminded of this every time we watch the opening credits and see Mark's actor, Steve Zahn, next to this rotting fruit. Bad balls. His fear of dying is quelled when he gets the prognosis from his doctor. His balls don't have cancer. And for a brief day, he is elated. He becomes like a dad philosopher.
Every day can be a new day, right? And if it is, it's like you're You're always being born into life.
Honestly, a beautiful sentiment. He signs up for scuba lessons with Quinn.
Dad, that's gonna suck so hard.
And reflects on his own relationship with his father.
One of the great sadnesses of my life is that you two never got the chance to know each other. You're like a real alpha. Yeah, it's tough.
So his masculinity and balls are intact. Life is good.
Hey, Uncle Charlie, how are you?
This, however, is short-lived. He'd called his uncle to find out what type of cancer his dad died from, and...
AIDS?
So his dad fucked other dudes.
Why?
Because he liked it.
Mark's reaction to this is so much worse than when he thought his balls had cancer. We've established Mark's view of his father, this impenetrable, I'm sorry, alpha avatar of manliness.
The Maharaja of manliness.
And this revelation of his possible homosexuality.
A lot of straight guys like ass play.
Shatters Mark into more pieces than Tanya's cremated mother. It reminds me of when I came out and all my loved ones' reaction was, have we not already talked about this? So there is a non-insignificant degree of homophobia in Mark's response.
He's off at some bathhouse on the DL, getting manhandled by some random dudes.
Assuming that his dad wasn't some masculine alpha type because he had sex with men, well, all I'll say is it reveals a good amount of ignorance on what a lot of gay men are actually like. In general, though, it's understandable that he would be shocked. Given Mark's age, his father's death when he was a teen coincides with the AIDS epidemic of the 80s, which provides a lot of historical and cultural context that would be a shock to anyone. With this newfound burden of knowledge, Mark proceeds to make a series of the most wrong decisions you could make.
Maybe it's better if I'm just really real with you.
He decides he wants to just be totally open with Quinn and later some other people, as if this new emotional weight of his father dying from AIDS could have been avoided if his dad had just told him he was a power bottom or whatever.
Maybe he was a bossy bottom. Yeah, maybe Grandpa was a power bottom.
You're bi.
He drinks all day, reveals inappropriate intimate details about his and Nicole's sex life to essentially a complete stranger.
Hey, bud, when you get this perpetual hard-on, like an erection that you will not go down.
Yeah.
Flirts with two disinterested younger women.
Leprosy is no joke.
It's not.
And asks the gay resort manager,
What's it like, you know, being fucked up the ass?
The next day, filled with regret about the prior day's escapades, he kind of doubles down.
I cheated on your mother once. Well, not once, but with one woman. You know, a few times.
By revealing the affair to Quinn, which is just an astoundingly incorrect decision, I feel like Mark's thought process is, you know, my dad, my idol, did not tell me his deeply shameful secret. I feel betrayed by him because of this. So to avoid doing the same to my son, I will share with him my deeply shameful secret. So there's essentially every step in that is deeply flawed on multiple levels. His dad not telling teenage Mark about his gay double life has exponentially more factors playing into why that can't or shouldn't be shared than Mark not telling Quinn about cheating on Nicole. Up until kind of the last decade, being publicly out wasn't really an option for a ton of gay people. And of course, it still isn't for many, depending on where they live and what their family's like. Many men did and continue to today marry women, have children, and secretly have sex with other men. If a wife and or children find this out, it's going to upend large swaths of their lives and identities. It's almost like homophobia hurts everybody. There is an argument that Mark's dad also cheated on his mom, so maybe that's where Mark is drawing the parallel, but nothing in the show supports that. Anytime Mark talks about it, it's about how floored and grossed out he is at the thought of his dad being gay.
That makes me want to throw up.
It's possible that Mark's mom knew about it and they had some sort of open marriage situation, but there's really no way for us to know. It's easy today to condemn gay men who did the whole straight family but secret gay outings thing back then, but I was born in the 90s, and by the time I came out in my late teens, it was kind of okay for me. But being in the closet fucking sucks. I can't imagine how I would have grown up and lived my life in a society that, when AIDS came around and killed 10% of a generation of gay men, kind of shrugged and said, we don't really care. There's a blind sense of privilege and entitlement from Mark in feeling like this is a personal betrayal from his dad rather than a symptom of larger societal ills. There's no sympathy from him toward his dad, his mom, his uncle, people who've died from AIDS, just a revulsion, yet a curiosity too, toward homosexuality and his idealization of his father breaking apart. Mark's dad being gay, maybe,
Or bisexual.
You're bi.
was a shameful secret, not because being gay is actually something to be ashamed of, but Mark having an affair and cheating on Nicole is a shameful secret and he should feel ashamed. I can't think of any utility in sharing this with Quinn. It's just selfish. It's selfish to put that on your teenager, and it's another selfish betrayal to Nicole as they agreed to not tell the kids.
Do you see how that's selfish, Mark?
Well, I think he took it pretty well.
Selfish in regards to me. To me.
But Mark is incapable of, as Olivia would say, centering the narrative around someone other than himself. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that Mark symbolizes upper-class straight white men in America and Mike White is satirizing that entire demographic with this character. But this show is satire. Mike White is interrogating this concept of masculinity being in crisis and fragile. And Mark is a great vehicle to explore those ideas through because, like, he's just some guy. He's your average dad.
Happy to be here.
He's able to recognize class, privilege, colonialism, racism, institutional oppression, but doesn't care or have any desire to actually reflect on his own culpability within that system.
Shouldn't kill people, steal their land, and then make them dance. Welcome to history. Welcome to America. Nobody cedes their privilege. That's absurd.
Nobody cedes their privilege, and no one more so than Mark. Nicole and Mark come across as not supportive of equality because they believe we've already achieved it. They're dismissive of historical factors and context because, in their minds, why trudge things up when they're not problems anymore? Why discuss factors like colonialism when, yeah, you know, it happened. It was maybe a moral gray area. But, you know, what can you do? Because it happened in the past and I was not present, it has nothing to do with how I now operate in the world / is even a real issue. It's poor temporal reasoning that ignores the effects of history, and it causes Nicole to ignore her emotional reality and Mark to ignore anything that doesn't directly affect him.
She's tricky.
Is she your friend?
Yeah, she's my friend. As long as she has more of everything than I do. But if I have something of my own, she wants it.
The first time we meet the characters is through Olivia and Paula, who judge the other guests based off their appearance and demeanor. They're half right, half wrong, but this sequence illuminates their characters more than any others, mocking Tanya's social isolation.
She's meeting her friends for a girls' trip.
She gets on their nerves, but she pays for everything, so they put up with her.
Rachel's fake job.
She's in fashion.
Marketing.
Shane's Adderall addiction, and Olivia's own family working for a pedophilic international cabal. Even though they're off on the details, they get at some emotional truth. Tanya is lost in life with seemingly no close friends or loved ones. Rachel doesn't have a fake job, but it's low paying and not making any cultural impact. Shane is an asshole. And the Mossbachers aren't drinking the blood of children, but they are in the top 1% and don't really care about those at the bottom. This is also the first time we're meeting Olivia and Paula, and the first thing we learn is that these are mean girls who bond over mocking others. Olivia embodies cognitive dissonance, a conscientious objector to the system she fully benefits from and participates in, while thinking that her cynicism and critique absolves her of responsibility. In the Inside the Episode, Sydney Sweeney mentions that Paula is actually the one who's opened her eyes to new ways of thinking and analyzing the world.
Paula introduced her to different beliefs than what she grew up with, and she's learned a lot through being Paula's friend and how the world affects Paula in a different way than it affects Olivia. And she's more cautious and conscious of how her parents and her family speak and what they believe in, and she kind of wants to stand up against them because of Paula.
Having just finished her first year of college, she's returned to the family dynamic with a whole bunch of words she probably can't define.
She was a neolib and a neocon.
I'm just chilling.
She correctly identifies her parents' apathy towards societal ills and their own culpability, while making no attempt to interrogate her own culpability.
I'm sorry my family's so defective. I don't like them.
If Olivia and Paula genuinely believed and embodied what they say, they wouldn't be characters on the show because they wouldn't have gone on this trip in the first place. Olivia would have told her family, actually, I think it's immoral to participate in this neocolonial tourist industry on indigenous lands that were illegally annexed by the United States. But she didn't. So here we are. She's Regina George if capital, the ego, and the id, and sexual personae were her burn book. Nicole, rightly, calls out her lack of a coherent ideology besides cynicism, because at the end of the day, all Olivia cares about is going against the popular / neoliberal consensus. She doesn't actually feel sympathy or understanding for those less fortunate than her outside of, dare I say, virtue signaling to those at her affluent and liberal university. You can't pin a label like socialist or communist or whatever on Olivia because she doesn't have an actual ideology, which is fine because she's a sophomore in college and you're not expected to have it all figured out when you're 19. She collages various beliefs, sometimes contradictory ones, to assert her own superiority on others and assuage her internal guilt. Mike White told Sydney Sweeney and Brittany O'Grady to listen to the podcast Red Scare to match the timing and banter of the hosts, as well as their overall affect.
My feeling about wokeness is that it's like porn. You know it when you see it, and so no definition is really necessary.
He describes it very well, but it does take him a while.
Mm-hmm.
And he sort of adopts the voice of like...
Well, he's got to keep the audience hooked.
Yeah.
The journey is usually the part that you remember anyways.
I wish we had drugs.
I know. I have weed.
White, Sweeney, and O'Grady have never publicly said that Olivia and Paula were based off the hosts of Red Scare, Anna Kachian and Dasha Nekrasova, but there is an undeniable similarity, specifically in the contrarian elements of their ideology. Okay, I can't believe I'm talking about Red Scare right now. Okay, so there are people who identified as leftists or socialists or whatever in 2016, right around or before the rise of the online left, who now just find it kind of cringe based not necessarily on like the foundational ideas of socialism, but on the people who push for a left-wing or socialist agenda. It's an aesthetic critique. You might recognize this viral InfoWars video.
Hi, are you a fan of Bernie Sanders?
Yeah, I am.
What do you like about him?
That he's a socialist.
Why is socialism good?
Are you like, I don't really want to do this.
Well, for example, you know Venezuela, right?
Heard of it. But I just want people to have health care, honey. I don't want like...
Well,
same thing Hugo Chavez.
Oh my God.
When he was taking power in Venezuela.
You people have like worms in your brain, honestly.
That's Dasha from Red Scare. So how she went from that to this.
I don't really care about JD Vance. I'm happy to give Vance a chance. I don't have a dog in the fight with Vance. It's just like I'm a supporter of the Trump campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So just to out myself for a second, I've actually listened to a lot of Red Scare.
Shame.
Specifically episodes from 2019 through 2022.
I miss Donald Trump so much.
I mean, he's around, right?
I wish he was the president of America.
Well, you know, there's a chance
instead of Joe Brandon.
I think the country was in just like higher spirits. Everyone felt better.
There was more vitality. Yeah.
What would happen if we went to Africa?
Female genital mutilation.
I feel like they would probably kill me immediately and be like, "Oh, you are Jew," and then they would think that you were albino and scrap you for parts. I don't mean to dog Roxanne Gay for her weight. I hope she loses a ton of it and comes around
and comes on the pod. Because I don't think she'll make it up the stairs.
And my opinion is that some early online adopters of socialism did so more because it was edgy, slightly taboo, and cool. But as it gained in popularity, it stopped being cool.
Quick point of privilege. Quick point of personal privilege.
Yes.
Guys, first of all, Sacramento, he, him. I just want to say, can we please keep the chatter to a minimum? I'm one of the people who's very, very prone to sensory overload. There's a lot of whispering and chatter going on. It's making it very difficult for me to focus. Please, can we just, I know we're all fresh and ready to go, but can we please just keep the chatter to a minimum? It's affecting my ability to focus. Thank you.
Thank you, comrade.
So they pivoted to a different taboo and edgy ideology. YouTuber Hoots has a video called The Dirtbag Left I'd recommend watching if you have any interest in this phenomenon. Also, it's worth mentioning, Red Scare did a fairly hard pivot to the right between 2020 and 2022, and White Lotus was written in 2020. I don't think Olivia and Paula are politically aligned with what Red Scare now espouses. It's more like Olivia and Paula are the types of people who listened to Red Scare. All that to say, similar to Anna and Dasha, being cool and going against the grain is Olivia's core belief system, regardless of what the grain is. Olivia and Paula's relationship in the show is all about displaying the disconnect between what Olivia says she believes and her actual behavior. She seems to crave Paula's validation, to the point where a lot of people, myself included, thought she was in love with Paula for a good number of episodes. She needs Paula's approval to show that she is not her family, she doesn't share their values, going so far as to shame them in front of Paula.
He's stimming. He can entertain himself for hours with just his own hand gestures. He's fine in the kitchen. Duh, she's having another manic episode.
She said she was a fan.
Of who? Making shit happen all the time is a compulsion. It staves off feelings of emptiness. We don't want you in here.
This lighting makes me look freakish.
You sure it's the lighting? You see what I have to deal with? Mom, there's meds for this. You're addicted to porn. You sex shame Dad. Why? Because of the Asperger's? Mom, good news. I've been looking around the hotel, and it seems like all of the white, straight men are doing just fine.
But that's all talk and doesn't do anything to meaningfully distance herself from her upbringing. Her behavior tells a different story. Olivia immediately picks up on the fling between Paula and Kai, a native employee at the resort whose job is still kind of confusing to me. Is he a waiter, a dancer, bellhop, all in one? And from then on, Olivia incessantly pressures Paula to tell her about it, follows Paula throughout the hotel, spies on Paula and Kai while they have sex, and flirts with Kai, putting on an entirely different demeanor while doing so.
Are you from Hawaii?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, obviously. I'm sorry, that was such a stupid question.
It's weird, obsessive, obtrusive, and disrespectful to Paula as an autonomous person. Olivia doesn't allow Paula to have anything of her own without wanting it for herself.
She's tricky.
Isn't she your friend?
Yeah, she's my friend. As long as she has more of everything than I do. But if I have something of my own, she wants it.
Paula is showing a deeper understanding of Olivia's motivation and behavior than Olivia herself. I wouldn't go as far as Paula and say that Olivia only keeps Paula as a token minority friend she can use for cred and sort of weaponize against her family. Don't get me wrong, that happens plenty. But I think Olivia does ultimately deeply care for Paula and is just incapable of recognizing this aspect of herself and relational dynamic she's created. But she needs to, because if she doesn't, their friendship will remain conditional. Conditioned on Olivia always having more than Paula, and Paula never having something Olivia couldn't get herself. So many bots trying to follow me on Twitter. Stay out, bots. Who washed Washington's white woolen underwear when Washington's washer went west? Paula lives in a liminal space. She's not at the wealth level of the Mossbachers, but is also nowhere near that of Kai. She and Olivia attend the same school, are close friends. Just by using context clues, we can assert that Paula is at least middle class. On this vacation, Paula is enjoying all the perks that come with exorbitant wealth, while also slowly becoming aware in a very real way of the exploitation required to create those perks. She resents herself for internal feelings of hypocrisy and projects that onto Olivia. She's disgusted by Mark and Nicole and what they represent to her. She doesn't see them as real people, but rather avatars of an oppressive system.
Nobody cedes their privilege. That's absurd. It goes against human nature. We're all just trying to win the game of life.
She spends most of the series in denial of her own participation in the system, like Olivia, hoping that being aware of systemic oppression and vocalizing her distaste is enough to absolve her own internal guilt. The irony comes in when she hurts Kai more than any of the white wealthy guests ever do, at least in a direct way.
Was the hotel here?
They were the ones that actually evicted us from our lo'i. The land that was given by King Kamehameha to the Konohiki, it was a sacred title, can't be broken, but the government, they terminated our lease illegally.
This is the first moment Paula is faced with the direct and real ethical failings of colonialism and tourism in Hawaii, failings that fall on Native Hawaiians, like Kai. It's one thing to study, for example, homophobia in an academic environment where you're reading books and articles, maybe learning statistics and watching a few documentaries. It's an entirely different thing to speak directly to a gay person who tells you that they were kicked out of their house at age 14. The same goes for the consequences of colonialism. Having a Hawaiian say directly to your face, "Hey, this hotel you're staying at stole my family's land," can ignite a sort of righteous anger that can only be achieved through an empathetic human moment. And Paula, a non-native person staying at the resort, is implicated. She is still driving demand for tourism, even if at a microscopic level, validating the White Lotus's existence. And this causes an internal schism for her. What she believes and how she behaves seem to be entirely different. Paula realizes that having self-awareness and an intellectual understanding doesn't actually have much of a real-world impact. She feels helpless and complicit. This incongruity forces her into action. She's displaced her guilt onto the Mossbachers, who, as we've said, are far from perfect or innocent, so now they're her target.
She's not gonna bring her jewelry with her on the boat.
I don't know about this, Paula.
Just one of those bracelets, just one, is worth $75,000.
Not for Kai's sake or benefit, but for her own vengeance. In her mind, they're the ones that put her into this moment of internal reckoning.
I don't steal from people, you know?
They stole from you. They stole all of this from you. You know that. They're the same people. They're all the same people. Don't you see? They're all the same people. All of these people at some point have stolen from someone like you.
You spent all this money on this vacation to be at this resort on stolen land. You take me with you. You're so blindly privileged. You might as well have personally driven Kai's family off the land. None of this is conscious, in my opinion. These characters largely don't analyze their own behaviors or motivations, or when they do, they're not being honest with themselves. Paula really does care for Kai. Not enough to uproot her whole life and stay with him in Maui forever, and is upset at what happened to his family. But ultimately, she uses him to her own ends and takes on none of the consequences or responsibility. So now, the one thing she tried to do to remedy the situation has blown up and made things exponentially worse for the marginalized person she was hoping to help. In her final conversation with Olivia, Paula seems close to actually understanding her role in this system.
I'm not my parents, Paula.
But you are. Actually, you are. You think you're like this rebel, but in the end, this is your tribe. Your family, the people here.
She correctly identifies that Olivia's tribe is the Mossbachers and the other wealthy guests at the White Lotus. Just because Olivia uses buzzwords or ostensibly has a working understanding of social geopolitics through a left-wing framework doesn't absolve her of her privilege or her role in perpetuating the system she's so disgusted by. While everything Paula says about Olivia is largely true, it's also a projection. She's talking about herself. Paula and Kai's dynamic is a critique on the type of activism sometimes seen from the left. Someone like Paula, raised in a moderately well-to-do family, has a left-wing political awakening as a young adult, and then thinks that because of her privileged position, she knows how to help someone like Kai, even if they're explicitly saying, no, that's not what I want.
They have all this money and they don't even know what to do with it. And then there's someone like you who's struggling.
I know, but
That's not right.
I agree, but
It parallels the white savior concept, that a marginalized group of non-white people are helpless against their oppressors until a white person, usually a man from the oppressor side, comes in after smelling the roses and liberates them. Paula seems to unintentionally, with no malice towards Kai, hold this mentality, but with class and privilege. She has the answer and forces it on Kai with zero consideration for the consequences that only he will face. It's a privileged position to be in. She's here for a week. Her home wasn't stolen and turned into a luxury resort, and yet she should be the one to fix this problem, a problem she's known about for like 36 hours. Not to mention, it was kind of like a shitty plan from the start, like logistically. There are endless other ways Paula could have tried to help that didn't involve robbing the family she's staying with, who've paid for everything.
And I'm so appreciative, Nicole.
But anyway.
Leading to felony assault, Kai losing his job, getting arrested, and now having zero possibility of receiving legal compensation for his family's stolen land. Paula chooses her own desire to help rather than to actually help. I also understand and think it's worth mentioning the argument that, sans the physical altercation, the consequences for Kai aren't proportional to that of Nicole had her bracelets just been stolen while they were out of the room. Either the hotel would have reimbursed the $140,000. Well, I think Armond actually mentions that they can't do that, but their entire stay is comped. Or more likely, the jewelry is insured. And even if none of that is true, Nicole could just buy new ones and not really feel the financial loss besides the sentimental value. Olivia and Paula's final conversation, where Olivia confronts Paula about Kai's break-in, is objectively, indisputably, unequivocally the best scene of the entire season. For a relationship that is like fundamentally passive, to have both characters finally confront the other and themselves and say exactly what they're thinking is exhilarating. What has been thematic subtext for a majority of the season is finally spoken aloud.
Whatever you did, Paula, was really fucked up. My mom could have gotten really hurt. Something bad could have happened.
Something bad did happen.
On a literal level, Paula is saying, I just ruined this guy's life, and you don't think something bad happened? Then on another level, Kai's land was stolen. Damage has already been done, but we're also getting at something deeper and more fundamental to the show's central dramatic argument. This line is also about Hawaii. Like, look around you. Why is this resort even here? Something bad did happen. And even larger than that, it's about wealth disparity in our society, the privilege of being able to ignore colonialism while being privileged enough to enjoy its consequences. We're really starting to circle the thematic drain here.
You're the one who stole, yet I'm the bad guy?
Don't give me that. You've stolen too.
What did I steal?
Well, I guess it's not stealing when you think everything's already yours.
like 1 billion animals died in Australia during the fires. 1 billion. Where does all the pain go?
Through clever directing and editing, we're hearing Quinn's point through Paula's perspective. As she watches Kai perform in the luau and Quinn wonders, where does all of the pain go? We and Paula are asking that exact question. Not about the animals in Australia, but about the people of Hawaii. Where does this generational, cultural, and environmental trauma go? Trauma that has largely been obscured and unexamined, and when it's brought up for discussion, people like Nicole and Mark throw up their hands and say,
Welcome to history. Welcome to America.
where does all that pain go? Quinn is positing that suffering and pain can't be ignored by anyone, including, and maybe especially by, those at the top of the ladder. Enjoying excess luxury on the backs of those less fortunate than you isn't sustainable, because suffering isn't isolated to those directly experiencing it. It reverberates. This is a shockingly insightful realization from Quinn, a character that we haven't really taken seriously up until this point. He starts the series as an avatar of the dissociated Gen Z screen addict with heavy porn consumption who is disinterested in the world around him. And I think that disinterest stems from being a teenager and your identity being in flux. Quinn doesn't want to participate in the world because he doesn't know how he fits into it, so he retreats into this cyberspace as a defense mechanism. He's an immensely privileged kid who could, and largely does, have anything a teenage boy could want, but all this stuff hasn't helped. It's done the opposite. It's allowed him to not only disconnect from the world around him, but from himself and his values. After being exiled to sleep on the beach by Olivia, his electronics are destroyed by the morning tide.
And now all my shit is gone!
What shit?
My phone, my Nintendo, they got washed away! My iPad got soaked, it's fucking ruined! And now what the fuck am I supposed to do?
This is the best thing that could possibly ever happen to Quinn. Being without his electronics, this lifeline, forces him to reevaluate why he's so reliant on this virtual reality and to actually engage with what is physically around him. He has this quiet moment on the beach where a whale surfaces above the water. It's majestic, and there's something about being alone in a natural environment, regardless of witnessing anything notable, that allows you to connect with a piece of yourself that too often feels absent. You feel this weight of existence, this eternal web that links everything, and your part in all of it becomes this intuitive knowing. Am I just describing shrooms? The first time Quinn feels seen and valued is when he starts rowing with literally the most beautiful men on the planet. He gets to connect with nature, his body, and create needed distance from his normal life. It's also a great social outlet, something that's vital for teenagers. And with this distance, he's able to determine his values and see the sort of invisible prison the other 4 people in his group have locked themselves into.
What does it matter what we think if we think the right things or the wrong things? We all do the same shit. We're all still parasites on the earth.
In other words, rather than placing so much weight on what we and others say or think, we should enact our beliefs through actionable change. Like, does it matter that Olivia and Paula disagree with Mark and Nicole's entire worldview and ideology when they're both benefiting from the riches created by a system they despise? Well, I mean, it probably matters a little. I'm never going to discount self-awareness, but does it actually do anything to only believe? If you don't embody your supposed beliefs, how sturdy are they? How much of yourself are you willing to put behind those beliefs, despite whatever shit you might get from those around you, including those closest to you? Are political ideologies values and beliefs by themselves, or do political ideologies stem from those values and beliefs? What are the values and beliefs that guide Olivia? Are they legitimate concerns and indignation for the suffering of oppressed people, or just a way for her to assuage her guilt and feel morally superior to her family?
A minor I just got so I could better argue with my dad, honestly.
Quinn is the only character to break away from the system. Paula, Rachel, and Belinda each make their own attempt, but falter and fail for a myriad of reasons. There is a sort of eat, pray, love aspect to Quinn's story. Like, this wealthy white kid wearing an end homelessness shirt finds himself in Hawaii and is accepted by the natives into their culture and realizes there's so much more to life than his Nintendo Switch. Is that what happens in Eat, Pray, Love? Or, like, I don't know, Avatar. There's hundreds of examples. My point being that having Quinn sail away into the sunset as our closing image for the season is not supposed to be taken literally, or rather at face value. I'm not saying it's all a dream. So yes, Quinn did actually run away from his family and get on the boat to row to Fiji or whatever, but let's put on our allegory glasses. This ending is not supposed to leave you wondering, did his family find him? How long was he out there? He doesn't have a phone. All valid things to wonder when you end a series with a teenage runaway on a boat in the middle of the Pacific, but that's not what White Lotus wants you to take away. We're seeing someone fully embody their beliefs and desires, rejecting a spiritually unfulfilling life full of wealth and privilege that he's ultimately found meaningless. Quinn is saying no to life under a broken system and reaching for a life he actually wants to live.
I want to live!
But, and this has remained in the back of my mind since I first watched the show, Quinn wouldn't have even had the opportunity to make this realization and act on it unless he had the privilege and wealth to do so in the first place. God, this video is long.
People have been coming for me my whole life. I I'm just playing the hand I was dealt. Like, yeah, it's a great hand. And that's not my fault.
Yes, Shane is an asshole. I could create a 5-minute montage of all the horrendous shit he casually dispenses throughout the show. But I don't really want to do that. I don't think it's fair to the writing and acting to reduce Shane to purely a villain. Like, you've seen the show, I'm assuming. You should. You already have thoughts about Shane and his relationship with Rachel. He's certainly the villain within Rachel and Armand's story, but I'm not sure if I even entirely believe that. Shane obviously doesn't help either of them, but he's more of a symbol to Rachel and Armand and their internal struggle rather than some unfeeling sociopath hell-bent on destroying them.
Dude's going down.
So I'm going to lend Shane as much grace as I think is fair without ignoring or discounting the fact that he is, in fact, a raging asshole.
No, I was actually trying to not be an asshole.
That you failed?
Earlier, I said that Olivia and Paula are the first characters we meet, and
Actually, no, that's not the truth, Ellen.
Shane is the first character we meet. Alone, lost in some unknown distressing thought, sitting at his gate while an older couple attempt to make small talk. We learn a few things. 1, someone at the White Lotus was killed.
Someone was killed there.
2, Shane was on his honeymoon.
It's my honeymoon.
3, his wife is not there.
Yeah, where's your wife?
4, he's an asshole.
Leave me the fuck alone.
And 5, he seems to have some sort of connection to the killing and is some flavor of upset by it.
Yeah, they're about to load the body on our plane.
We're establishing the murder mystery aspect of the story, but it's only a murder mystery for us. Dramatic irony. We get to know something the characters don't. One of them's going to be dead by the end of the week. Isn't that fun? Opening the season this way also frames our understanding of who Shane is. We are unknowingly seeing him at what I feel fairly confident in saying is the worst moment of his life. His wife has left him and he accidentally killed someone. I like to think of myself as an affable and polite person, but if I was in Shane's shoes at that exact moment, I don't know if I even would have entertained the conversation with these people for as long as he did. So when he tells this couple to fuck off, like, yeah, it's rude, but I can't reasonably fault him. I think most viewers' immediate guess would be, yeah, this guy definitely killed his wife, which is a valid theory given the extremely limited information we have. Again, he's the only character to get this specific treatment. If the only effect this opening sequence had was the dramatic irony, I'd probably be lukewarm on it. The 1 week earlier trope is so overused, especially in television, often to manufacture intrigue from the viewer that isn't really earned. But here, it has this fascinating effect on Shane as a character and our relationship with him. We, as an audience, are narratively primed to despise this dude. Shane then goes on to behave in ways that entirely confirm our beliefs. Like, let's get into the room situation. As a quick summary, Shane and Rachel arrive to their room, the Palm Suite. Look how green and leafy it is. A gorgeous suite with a bathroom the size of my bedroom and a view of the ocean during sunset. Shane realizes this isn't the room that his mom booked.
This is the wrong room.
He tells Rachel, who says,
This is like the swankiest hotel room I've ever stayed in.
to which Shane replies,
You haven't traveled that much.
he requests a blowjob before going to complain at the desk.
Maybe blowjob first?
Rachel denies this request. At the desk, Shane tells Armand and Lonnie they're in the wrong room. Armand checks the computer, assures Shane they're in the correct room and not paying a higher rate. Shane wonders aloud if he should call his mother.
Maybe I should call my mother?
Armand curb stomps him with this reply.
Do you want to call your mother? What do you think she'll say?
A lot of should we invite Bella Hadid energy in that. Shane is stumped that he didn't get what he wanted and leaves. Rachel has been polite and uncomfortable during this entire exchange. Armand confesses to Lonnie that he double booked the Pineapple Suite, the one Shane's mom booked. Shane's mom forwards him the booking, confirming that they are supposed to be in the Pineapple Suite and did pay the higher price. The travel agent gets involved. Shane confronts Armand with this evidence, who still flat out denies it. Shane is dumbfounded. Armand gives a nothing behind the eyes platitude.
Well, if there's been a mistake, I do apologize. I'm so very sorry.
They will be in the Pineapple Suite with 2 days left in their stay. Shane asks Armand about something romantic to do for Rachel. Armand, having just booked a charter boat for Tanya to spread her mother's asses. Okay. Suggests Shane take Rachel for dinner on the same boat at sunset, sabotaging the dinner. Shane is furious. He demands the number for Armand's boss. Armand gives him a fake number. Shane, going to confront Armand about the bogus digits, walks in on Armand performing analingus on his employee. Can I say that on YouTube? The general manager finally hears about what's been going on from the travel agent. Armond realizes he's over and ingests a good amount of substances. He breaks into the pineapple suite where Shane and Rachel are now staying, poops in their suitcase, and then hides in the closet when Shane walks in. Shane finds the poop, freaks out, calls the front desk, hears Armond shuffling, grabs a knife he put on the nightstand once he heard about the Mossbacher burglary, and accidentally stabs Armond, who dies in the freestanding tub. So essentially, Shane couldn't get past not being in the room that they booked, which leads him to kill Armond. The wrinkle in the room situation that both elevates it and makes it challenging as a viewer is that a lot of the time, maybe even most of the time, Shane is entirely correct. They booked and paid for the more expensive suite, and then Armond lied. What would happen 99.9% of the time is Armond would apologize, immediately refund the difference, and then throw in a free couples massage or something. Shane would probably want to get into the room once it's available, and Armond would agree to that, and then the end. But that's not what happens, and that's also not the only time Armond lies. He continues this lie repeatedly, even in the face of actual proof to the contrary. It turns from a white lie into a long episode of passive aggression toward a random guest. So from that perspective, we have no reason to dislike Shane or disagree with his actions. But we do, because he sucks. If you've ever worked a customer-facing job, there's something sickly satisfying about watching Armond just continuously fuck over Shane. Because if you've worked one of those jobs, you've met a Shane, and you probably wanted to waterboard him. A cornerstone of Shane's character is this victim mentality. In a paradoxical way, Shane views himself as a victim of others, especially those with less wealth than him, because they're trying to exploit him.
Like, people have been coming for me my whole life. I'm just playing the hand I was dealt. Like, yeah, it's a great hand, and that's not my fault.
In a cast discussion at the ATX TV festival, Shane's actor, Jake Lacey, explains,
like, if you have a lot of money or status, or, you know, that, like, the way you never really know if people are dealing with you as you, or if they're dealing with you because of the money you have and the access you have, and whether there's a resentment there, whether there's like manipulation, that like that way that having money and wanting money can color these relationships. And that, like, part of Shane's experience is constantly being like, is there a thing here? Like, is there an underlying resentment? Are you fucking coming for me just because I've got this thing? Like, and so there's this weird paranoia and like victimhood happening for the guy who like has it all.
So Shane has this underlying anxiety that he's being seen for what he has, not who he is. And I think it's true that people with any type of status can be manipulated by those who want what they have. Let's put a bookmark in this thought because it comes back later with some other characters, but just keep it in mind. I want to know the why behind Shane. Why is the room situation so all-consuming that it impacts his ability to even have a conversation with Rachel? I mean, he seemed really excited about the plunge pool specifically, but when they're finally in the pineapple suite, he doesn't even use the plunge pool. In fact, the pineapple suite looks like it's at the exact same tier of luxury as the palm suite. When thinking about his motivation to just not let it go, I come up with a few possibilities. There's that victim mentality I explained. This is his honeymoon, and he naturally doesn't want anything to go wrong during the nascent stage of his marriage. His mom booked the room, and she can literally never be wrong, especially when it comes to taking care of him. I am entitled to this room because it is the room that we paid for. And lastly, I am entitled to everything. Shane has an entitlement problem. I think Paula's line,
"Well, I guess it's not stealing when you think everything's already yours,"
applies to all of the wealthy guests, but none more so than Shane. He enters every scene with this underlying mentality of, I deserve to get what I want when I want it. He even kind of entered this new marriage with that mindset. Shane is an often horny man. The times we see him fully focused on Rachel are in a sexual context. If she tries to redirect the conversation towards other aspects of herself or their life, Shane becomes disinterested or distracted because that's not what he wants. He even admits it.
Was it the most important thing to you?
It's up there.
It's like all roads lead to getting laid for Shane. And if he gets the sense that something with Rachel won't follow that path, he doesn't care. When directly confronted with this by Rachel, he flounders for an answer.
There's other stuff too. I love you, and we're a team. We get along great.
as if he's never actually stopped to wonder, why do I love Rachel besides she's hot and I get to sleep with her? He not only feels entitled to sex whenever he wishes, but he feels entitled to not engage with his wife as a full person with her own inner thoughts and independence. He feels entitled to have a wife without any of the responsibility that comes with tethering yourself to another person in that way. And Rachel should just feel grateful that he picked her. Out of all the women he could have had, he chose Rachel. But why? Where does this entitlement come from?
Surprise!
There's been a lot of discourse lately around boy moms. These moms, mainly on TikTok, posting content ranging from watch my child behave like a normal child, #boy mom, to posts indicating deeper psychological issues. Chokehold. She made a fan cam of her son coming back from baseball practice. A common thread in a lot of these posts is internalized misogyny directed at their son's hypothetical future girlfriends or wives. Like this unhinged Facebook post.
I gave away being the one he hugs and kisses. I gave away being the one he looks for in a crowd. I gave away being the first person he turns to when things get tough. I gave away being his number one girl. I gave away a piece of my heart. I gave away my son.
A lot of I statements in there. There was a trend of moms filming themselves teaching their sons to cook so he won't be impressed by your daughter's frozen pizza. I have great news for these moms. They will never have to worry about their sons, girlfriends, or wives stealing him because their sons will never be capable of maintaining normal relationships with women because of how fucking weird you're being about all this. There's a lot more to discuss with the boy mom trend, like the ethics of filming your clearly distressed kid getting in the car after school. Do these people not know about digital footprints? Go watch Tiffany's excellent video on the dark side of family vlogging if you want to see some more fucked up shit. Shane's mom, who I just looked up on IMDb, apparently her name's Kitty, is the quintessential boy mom. She surprises them on their honeymoon, more like an ambush, because Shane sounded so upset about the room.
I'm crazy. I'm so sorry. I'm totally crazy, I know.
I can't overemphasize how fucking insane it is that she shows up to their honeymoon. It's one of those plot points that is so convenient to the character arcs and rings entirely true. Kitty and Shane act as a unified front. They validate each other's viewpoints, and their relationship is founded on this bizarre mutual worship. They each see the world and themselves in exactly the same way. There's almost a psychic link between the two.
Hey, can I get a coffee, black coffee?
Can I get a latte, please? No foam? No foam latte. Great, thank you.
They're intertwined with each other at an atomic level, and you realize that this woman has molded Shane's entire person. I don't think he ever had a chance at being well-adjusted. Kitty needles Rachel at every opportunity.
And Rachel, you were such a beautiful bride, but also very pale. But now you have a little more color and it looks great.
Encourages her to just be a trophy wife.
Well, what's so wrong with that? A trophy shines. It's a source of pride. Trophies made of gold. You know, it's not the worst.
And her final imparting words are,
be happy, Rachel. Okay.
We're live. Come on in. I'm on the Shane section right now. I don't really have a lot of douchebag clothes, so I don't really have a lot to back this up, so maybe I shouldn't say it, but I just sort of get the vibe from Kitty, God, that's a wild name, that she understands Shane kind of sucks and knows exactly what Rachel's feeling. All of her moments recommending Rachel just be happy and a trophy wife is almost just telling Rachel to enjoy being wealthy and ignore the downsides of having married an emotionally stunted narcissist. It's as if Kitty sees a lot of her younger self in Rachel, so Rachel questioning this life she's married into is threatening. Simultaneously, Kitty understands Rachel's importance in Shane's life story. If Rachel can just mold herself into what Shane wants, she'll be happy. After all, it worked out for Kitty, so why wouldn't it for Rachel?
I can't believe that I'm saying this, but I think I made a mistake.
What's a mistake?
To sit in solemn silence on a dull, dark dock in a pestilential prison with a lifelong lock, awaiting the sensation of a short, sharp shock from a cheap and chippy chopper on a big black block. Script consultant Dan had another great observation. Each group of vacationers' storyline has one person who's an outsider and not part of the upper class. Paula with the Mossbachers, Belinda with Tanya, and Rachel with Shane. Whereas Paula is more of an observer of the upper echelons of wealth, we are watching Rachel's induction ceremony as one of the few who rise from the lower working class into the gated 1%.
My parents were always broke, and I haven't spent a day of my life, Shane, where I wasn't hustling or generally just worried about money.
She's a freelance journalist writing articles for lowbrow online publications. You know, those sites that have so many ads, it makes it difficult to even read the article. A lot of bold headers and pictures. Rachel even admits that her article on Nicole isn't her own work. It was repurposed from the Post. Her career is not where she wants it to be, but she's still hopeful it can grow into something worthwhile.
We actually just met last September.
Oh, wow, that was really fast.
Yeah, how'd you know he was the one?
So they've been together less than a year, which explains to an extent why Rachel is so caught off guard by Shane's behavior re the room situation. You've probably heard about love bombing, which the Cleveland Clinic defines as having 3 phases.
The idolization phase. During this phase, your partner bombards you with excessive love and affection to draw you in and convince you to let your guard down. At first, it may seem too good to be true or easy to be swept off your feet.
Shane really wanted to get married, and he's very decisive and pretty convincing, so.
And then you came along, and you're so handsome, and I was so attracted to you, and you had so much going on, and going around the city with you was like a fantasy. All the doors open, and everyone, I could tell, thought I was so lucky, and that made me feel good, but in the dumbest way.
The devaluation phase. Once you've let your guard down and get comfortable in the relationship, red flags start to appear. Your partner may try to exert control over you in a variety of ways.
You're on your honeymoon. Fuck that.
And I just put journalism on the back burner for a little while.
That's a great idea.
But she finally figured out journalism is a sucker's game.
I didn't say that.
Well, I think we all...
They may also try to limit access to your friends and family and gaslight you into thinking nothing is wrong with their behavior.
What if my mom showed up? How would you feel about that?
It'd be fine. It'd be just fine. Plus, it would never happen.
Oh, yeah? Why not?
Because you can't afford the plane ticket.
That is so fucked up.
You know what I mean.
The discard phase. When you confront them about their harmful behavior or try to reset healthy boundaries, your partner may avoid accountability by refusing to cooperate and compromise or by abandoning the relationship.
Because now, we are starting down a very dark road, and you better be sure you really want to go there.
This can leave you feeling confused, disoriented, or like you somehow failed to fix things.
We see Rachel go through these 3 phases, but most of our time is spent in the second, devaluation. Was that so hard? Was that so hard to do? 3 phrases. That is a tongue twister. Through these 3 phases. Why did I write that? Oh my God. Go through these 3 this is impossible. Oh, I'm too tired to do this. Okay. It's not going well. Meeting Shane, getting engaged and then married was the idealization phase. Rachel is in this new world she's never experienced, let alone dreamed of experiencing, with a man who has all the access telling her, you belong here. This can be intoxicating and blinding, especially when Shane is focusing all his energy on Rachel. It's like a spotlight you never want off of you. But now, for Shane, mission accomplished. He and Rachel are married. So Shane let his guard down with the room situation. The spotlight shifts off of Rachel and she starts to see him a little more clearly. Maybe this guy isn't who I thought he was. This happened too quickly. Oh God, he doesn't even like me. This realization is budding the first time we meet Rachel. She's shocked and almost hesitant about her marriage.
Mr. Shane Patton, Mrs. Rachel Patton.
Mrs. Patton, wow.
Yeah.
Sounds so weird. Am I changing my name? Is that...
Over the season, Rachel has conversations that I've internalized as trials for her initiation into this upper class. The conversation at the pool with Olivia and Paula.
Where'd you go to school?
SUNY Potsdam. Pay off my loans, all of which I have yet to do, so...
Won't he pay off your loans?
It's like a testing to see how worthy Rachel is. The only moment in this scene Olivia and Paula respect Rachel begrudgingly is when they see her in a bikini.
Oh shit.
With Nicole.
Women have a lot to navigate, and I just think it's really important to support women when I can. That was a fucked up piece. I'm just chilling.
With Mark.
How do you keep the spark alive?
Oh, the spark? Oh, that's not alive. That died.
With Kitty.
Well, what's so wrong with that? A trophy shines.
And Shane.
Maybe blowjob first?
So Rachel is seeing with full clarity what this new class is like and her role in it. She's not cool enough, not talented enough. The one thing she's valued for is her sex appeal, and even that will fade. So she's trapped. Maintaining her dignity would be at the expense of financial stability and a shit ton of money. Rachel articulates this in her conversation with Belinda.
Could I live with myself if I made this Faustian bargain where I just ended up being someone's arm candy for the rest of my life?
Finally speaking aloud what we've been witnessing for 6 episodes. I think most of the people I've talked to about this show have said that they were disappointed Rachel decides to be with Shane in the end. They have an almost like rom-com airport reunion, Rachel tearfully promising,
I'll be happy.
echoing Kitty's advice from the previous episode. But let's return to that scene with Belinda. After Rachel pours her heart out, Belinda says,
You want my advice? I'm all out.
And then she just leaves, offering no comfort or guidance whatsoever. Now, Belinda has her reasons, and we'll get to it, but Rachel has no context. To her, she just laid everything out, bare and raw, unable to think clearly, and Belinda just leaves. No sympathy or advice, just an exit. And then the next time we see Rachel, she's decided to go back to Shane. So what happened? What happened in that gap of time between Belinda walking out and Rachel embracing Shane at the airport? Well, let's think about where Rachel and Belinda are in their respective stories by the time they have this scene. Rachel's already entered this upper class, so if she and Shane just stay married, she'll never have to worry about money again. Belinda has just had her opportunity unceremoniously revoked by Tanya, so to see Rachel cry over her situation is just irritating.
Like, you can wipe your tears away with a Louis Vuitton handkerchief, and that is something that I can't really give you any shoulder to cry on about.
And Rachel recognizes this. She and Belinda are no longer in the same socioeconomic position. They're not equals. Rachel's now unrelatable and unsympathetic to the working class she's been surrounded by her entire life. We've seen Rachel's story from her perspective. We understand, we sympathize, but when you yank it out of context, like in talking with Belinda, it just starts to sound whiny.
The lifestyle that Shane provides her ultimately is more seductive than her own self-respect.
So Rachel decides, yeah, I can put up with it. I'll just be happy. This is emotionally dissatisfying for the audience, and that's the point. Rachel is choosing an emotionally unfulfilling but economically stable future for herself and hoping, well, probably pretending, that it'll get better. Either Shane will get better or she'll learn to deal with it, and then she's just going to turn into Kitty, essentially. So the audience is disappointed, which just further drives home the point that in our world, wealth trumps everything. Regardless of how disappointing it can be to see your friend with the wrong guy, and yes, I'm talking to you specifically, no matter his emotional immaturity and narcissism, if he can open the gate to that 1% lifestyle, 99 out of 100 people are going to choose that life.
You know, 100 people can be in a room.
I've watched the first season probably like 10 times now. And at this point, I'm not disappointed with Rachel. I'm upset that her decision makes perfect sense. I'm upset that money infests every relationship in our lives. It's the number one driver of every decision we make. I'm upset because there's a good possibility I would make the same decision as Rachel. And if you would like to stop me from making that decision, sign up for my Patreon. I know Belinda would, and that's why she can't stand to listen to Rachel's conundrum.
You're never not at work.
Well, you think I'm working hard now. Wait till I start my own business.
What are you talking about?
I don't know. I think I'm getting ahead of myself. There's this woman, this guest, this rich white lady. She took me out to dinner and she said if I wanted to start my own wellness center, she'd fund the whole thing.
Yes, it's blurry. I don't know why it's blurry. I triple checked the focus. It's blurry. Leave me alone. I forgot that I own this and I got tired of holding the mic. So, you know, some late video adjustments for you. Okay. Do I sound good? So just as an umbrella statement for the Belinda section, I fucking love Belinda. I can't wait for her to return in season 3. Natasha Rothwell gives a breathtaking performance. And, well, if you get to the end of the season and you don't love Belinda, well...
I'm going to be constructive here. You should kill yourself.
Just want to make sure we're all on the same page. So with that said, let's take a look at the first time we meet Belinda.
Unfortunately, we are all booked.
Oh, no. Really?
The spa is booked and busy with their oxygen facials and kelp masks and sea salt, seaweed scrubs. No room for Tanya. Okay. Then when Tanya shows up at the spa hoping Belinda has found some room, tell me you've never worked a service job without telling me you've never worked a service job. Belinda says no, nothing's open, but Belinda is available to do...
I'm my own phallic mother. I'm my own vaginal father.
My own vaginal father?
So cool, right? Sure. I'm my own phallic mother, my own vaginal father. Kind of ate that.
You shouldn't actually even be alive, you sniveling little creep.
Spa is totally booked, but Belinda gives Tanya some sort of specialized treatment. And, well, it works. Like, Tanya is rejuvenated and singing Belinda's praises. But couched in this moment of Tanya tipping Belinda a few $100 is a somewhat subtle reveal. Listen to Belinda on the phone.
Yeah, today at 3. Of course, we can use massage, and then we can follow that with the scrub. We'll do that at 3, massage, followed by scrub, followed by the wrap.
So Belinda lied to Tanya from the moment she got off the boat, while leaving room for the possibility that something might become available.
You know what? I'll see what we can do.
On a rewatch, it's evident that Belinda, knowing that the guests who arrived at the White Lotus via boat are the wealthiest and most important, lied in the hopes that Tanya would go for her.
I'm my own vaginal father.
So their entire relationship is founded on a lie Belinda told hoping to exploit Tanya, a clearly unwell woman grieving the death of her abusive mother. Now, do I think Belinda's a bad person for this? No, of course not. Get your queen coin. I'm going to start a cryptocurrency called Queen Coin. We shouldn't rush off to moral judgments based off one lie, but I think it's important to establish this fact when discussing the dynamic between Belinda and Tanya. Equally important is that the treatment, it clearly worked on Tanya. She tries telling Armond how wonderful Belinda was. She comes back for more, and she latches on emotionally to Belinda for support. So in a way, Tanya got exactly what she needed from Belinda, but was just unknowingly coerced into it. According to Glassdoor, the average yearly salary for a spa manager at the Four Seasons is $70,000. So let's say Belinda makes that. If I plug that into a website called smartasset.com to see taxes, I see that Belinda's take-home paycheck is about $4,300 a month, coming out to $52,000 a year. And then bestplaces.net, I'm really scraping the bottom of the barrel for research here, says you should make a minimum of $64,400 a year to live comfortably in Maui. I don't know if that's pre or post-tax, but my point is that Belinda makes less in a year what one of Nicole's bracelets costs. As spa manager, this is probably the highest Belinda can go within the company. Although season 3 may change that. We'll see. Who knows? I guess the people working on it know. Leave a comment. So she's looking at her future, and it's just day after day of dealing with Tanya's and Shane's and Nicole's and Rachel's, an endless carousel of astronomically wealthy people expecting world-class treatment.
With the clientele here, it's mostly rich white people. And to be honest, I struggle with that because rich people, they're the ones that, fucking up the whole world.
And not only the guests, but her boss as well. Armond, like Tanya, leans on Belinda throughout the season for emotional support. They seem to have a sort of friendship, you know? Belinda knows about Armand's sobriety. They speak casually with each other.
I think the father staying in the trade winds asked me to fuck him up the ass.
What?
But their dynamic remains boss-employee. Belinda isn't in a position to say no to the guests or Armond.
Have you ever thought about starting like your own business?
Come on.
I would be down for funding something like that.
This is the moment Belinda has been waiting for, whether she knows it or not. Frustrated by her stagnant career, feeling like her skills are being wasted on the white wealthy guests, this is a dream opportunity. Tanya is unknowingly dangling a carrot in front of Belinda, and the rest of the season is just watching Belinda do anything and everything to get it. Tanya's wealth hangs over every scene, motivating but also blinding Belinda to their actual dynamic, even when Tanya says it out loud.
She took her money and she manipulated people with it.
Belinda is more than willing to do, and excuse the HR therapy speak, extensive emotional labor for Tanya if that means she can actualize her dream of owning her own spa for low-income women. Or, as Tanya puts it,
spa for poor women with a girl from Maui.
And Belinda does the labor. She takes off work early to support Tanya, attempting to spread her mom's ashes. Takes Tanya to her room and puts her to bed, continues to have dinners, listens as Tanya complains about Greg not calling her. Belinda is there and ready to do whatever it takes in exchange for Tanya's funding. In fact, in every single conversation we see Belinda have throughout the season, except her son and helping Lonnie give birth, whether with Tanya or Armond or Rachel or a random guest on the phone,
This is the spa?
she's emotionally supporting a wealthier white person at her own expense. Putting the guest before yourself is literally in the job description. Like, here, this is a literal job description for spa manager at a Four Seasons.
You know, it's a Japanese ethos where we are asked to disappear behind our masks as pleasant, interchangeable helpers. It's tropical kabuki.
And that's just the norm across the service industry, at least in America. Like a mask that you slip on to dissociate and become servile. It's dehumanizing and undignified.
I got asked out, believe it or not. There's a deep sea fisherman staying next door, and he's with a group from Black Lives Matter.
Yeah?
There's an obvious racial element to the Belinda-Tanya dynamic, but like Olivia and Paula's, it's largely shown through subtext rather than spoken aloud.
I know a lot of rich, white, fucked up people.
Because in real life, that's usually how it works. These sorts of power dynamics come out through behavior rather than explicitly said. Whether it's Olivia exerting power over Paula by flirting with Kai, or Tanya using her wealth to foster a codependence with Belinda, inequality is usually insidious and almost subconscious. Like, I don't think Tanya literally thought, I, as a wealthy white person, am going to promise this black woman funding for her business so I can get her emotional support while I'm on vacation and then pull the rug out from under her. No, but that's still exactly what happened. The effect it has on Belinda is the same, regardless of Tanya's intent. When we finally get to Belinda and Rachel's scene, despite Rachel being left with zero guidance or support, there's a sort of catharsis to Belinda refusing to participate in the cycle. If we put Rachel and Belinda's stories up side by side, we see Belinda doing for Tanya what Rachel is struggling against doing for Shane. Complete emotional support and putting herself second to a financially dominant partner.
Could I live with myself if I made this Faustian bargain?
And the thing is, Belinda already made that decision. Yes, I will trade a piece of myself and my dignity by taking care of Tanya because it will lead me to what I want. Financial independence and control over my work. Now, obviously, there's a difference in being married to someone versus being in business with someone, but I'm not speaking literally. I'm speaking about emotions and dynamics. In Belinda's eyes, at that moment, all Rachel has to do is suck it up and go be wealthy. While Belinda has to deal with the emotional fallout of not getting her business, her boss being manslaughtered, and still be expected to stand on that cliff and put on a smile for the next batch of rich white people to massage.
Great. Oh, good. I'll make an appointment.
Of course, yeah. If she's not booked with me.
I can't get rid of this, like, this really empty feeling. I want someone to figure it out for me.
I ran out of costume ideas. I'm not even wearing pants. I don't even care anymore. You can't even see me. So Tanya's a pretty helpless lady. She can't find her bags despite them being right next to her. Just a generally confused person who's feeling lost in the world. Returning to Olivia and Paula's immediate assumptions about Tanya, they say she's meeting her girlfriends who only keep her around because she pays for everything. But she's traveling solo to spread her mother's ashes and, as far as we can tell, has no one who cares about her in her life. She doesn't talk to friends on the phone or siblings or anyone. It's just Tanya. How ridiculous do I look right now? Maybe this light should be oranger. Lighting change for no narrative purpose. I just like it better. I am so sweaty right now. Okay. Not that this is by choice. Tanya does make genuine attempts to get to know people in a friendly, albeit Jennifer Coolidge awkward way.
You really know where you're going.
You have a beautiful family.
Oh, thank you. I know, yes, I know.
You have the most beautiful skin I've ever seen.
Whee! You're a beautiful couple.
Okay, do you guys remember the bookmark? Do you remember the bookmark? Let's return to it. Sorry, Nasma. Okay, if I can play the world's tiniest violin for just a second. I can imagine it would suck to be a person of note, whether wealth or fame or what have you, and have to enter every interaction with someone who already knows who you are and what you have. So, for example, I went to a top 5 film school.
What was that?
And now I'm doing this. And there was a student a year or two below me who was the child of an executive at a massive streaming company. Let's just say that. To give you an idea, one of my script consultants, who I also went to school with, commented on that last sentence and said, executive at a massive streaming company almost doesn't do it justice. I didn't know this student, but I would not want to be in that position. Just because of their last name alone, every student knew who their parent was. In a film school environment full of competitive kids who are dying to enter the TV and film industry, that sort of notoriety can hinder your ability to make friends you can trust. Do they like me? Or do they just like my last name? Again, I never met this student and I hope this wasn't their experience. And yeah, their parent was making a 9-figure salary, but you know, everyone deserves love. But you know, everyone deserves to have people in their life that they love and trust without fear of manipulation.
The date. Was it not good?
No, it was good. Yeah.
In the end, all Tanya wants is genuine connection and love, but the only way she knows how to do that is by leveraging her wealth. It's the one tool she has because she's, and I say this with just so much love, a weird person.
It's who I am, and there's nothing I can do about it. Please get out. Please get out.
I still want to fuck you.
Really?
That is probably the first time in Tanya's life she's fully opened up to another person, shown a rather ugly and deranged side of herself, and they haven't run away. She realizes that it is possible for someone to want her regardless of her wealth. If it wasn't already clear, I'm ignoring season 2 while talking about that, and you should too. Shh, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Next video. Tanya seems like the type of person who hasn't really had to do much in her life. Like, her wealth has isolated her from having many life experiences that the average person could relate to. And her emotional maturity is just stunted. I feel like most of Tanya's dialogue in the first 5 episodes just sounds like something a child would say.
My mother told me I would never be a ballerina, and that was when I was skinny.
Because following her mom's death, she's reverted back to being this like child who just wants love and approval from her parents. We see this play out in her dynamic with Belinda. It's this maternal projection because, as she says,
I want someone to figure it out for me.
And she feels like Belinda is the person to take on that role. After Tanya offers to invest in starting a business, that promise of wealth starts to infest this relationship.
She took her money and she manipulated people with it.
She's repeating her mom's pattern of behavior, wanting Belinda to inhabit this motherly role so badly, she'll use the only tool she's ever known: money. I think those scenes where Belinda brings up the spa and Tanya is either dismissive or redirects the conversation aren't Tanya being intentionally malicious. Rather, we're seeing her realize this behavioral repetition and feel guilt. Guilt for having already used her money to buy a relationship with Belinda, despite no money being exchanged at this point. What is Tanya's literal goal this entire season? To spread her mom's ashes, or more bluntly, to get rid of her mom. To be free of this clearly toxic relationship and all the behaviors that contribute to it. Tanya is allowed to have this moment of realization.
I'm realizing I'm getting back into this pattern again, where I latch on to somebody and then I use my money to control them. See, right now, the last thing I need in my life is another transactional relationship. You know, it's not healthy. For me.
How do I operate in the world? How am I using my wealth to get what I want? Meaningful and close relationships. Am I just shortcutting the actual work of being close to someone like my mom did? Do I want to do that? But in the same way that Mark's realization came at the expense of Nicole, or Paula with Kai, the consequences of Tanya breaking out of this cycle fall squarely on Belinda, who essentially did nothing but be exactly what Tanya needed. And yes, Tanya does give her a fat stack of cash that looks to be several $1,000s, and Belinda takes it. Obviously, that's different from being in business with half a billionaire, but I see this as Tanya fully recognizing that she's fucked over Belinda, apologizing in her own way, and acknowledging what their relationship truly is. None of that helps Belinda.
They just need to feel seen. So you want to be the only child, the special, chosen baby child of the hotel, and we are their mean mummies, denying them their pineapple room.
Armond is the juncture between the working class and the upper class elite guests at the White Lotus. At a moment's notice, he must switch from manager to faceless servant and back again. In the first episode, he's training a new employee, Lonnie, on how to interact with these VIP guests. He likens them to children who just want reassurance and parental adoration from the staff, a staff that should remain faceless and nameless.
You know, you don't want to be too specific as a presence, as an identity. You want to be more generic.
Generic.
Yes.
The employees all meld into one hive mind with a singular purpose: serve the guests. For an employee who's been in this business for, I imagine, quite some time, this forever attitude of the customer's always right can become exhausting and debilitating. And that exhaustion is compounded by other issues like Armand's substance abuse and Shane being an unrelenting asshole. In episode 2, we learn that he's 5 years sober, but following Lonnie's unexpected office birth, and Shane catching Armond in a white lie, that sobriety begins to falter.
Last night, I wanted a drink so fucking bad.
Listen, you are 5 years sober. You don't want to mess with that.
Then he's handed every recovering addict's worst nightmare, a bag full of drugs, illicit pharmaceutical paraphernalia. He's already at the end of his rope when we start the series, so everything we see in these 6 episodes is just his rapid descent into the void. Looking at the room situation from Armand's point of view, emotionally. It's not that he thinks he's correct and Shane is wrong. Like Shane, it's not about the room at all. As I said, when we finally do see the pineapple suite, it's essentially the exact same as the palm suite. Like, I would probably prefer the palm suite. Palm suite truther. Palm suite hive rise up. Like, no one actually cares. Shane, for once in his life, is not getting what he wanted from his mom. For Armond, it's more, I work my ass off every day in this hotel, fulfilling every desire, service, and accommodation for these people. And now you're going to ruin my life over having the palm suite instead of the pineapple suite? Are you fucking serious? Despite being the manager, Armond is nowhere near the level of wealth of the guests by an exponential margin. Once again, referring to Glassdoor, the estimated salary for a Four Seasons resort manager in Maui is between $81,000 and $126,000 per year. So let's say around $104,000 per year pre-tax. Not a bad salary. I mean, I'd argue that the value of Armond and the other staff's labor is probably worth more, but whatever. No one wants to hear that. I'll shut up. So Armond is in the same boat Belinda is. Their daily lives dominated by making sure every multi-millionaire customer they interact with are on the best vacation of their lives. Armand's vengeful regime against Shane, shall we say, is essentially just a rejection of this broader dynamic. Rejecting the institutional hierarchy that Armond himself is meant to uphold to the highest standards.
They exploit me, I exploit you.
Now, could he have done it more gracefully? Could he have picked an issue that he was actually correct on? Maybe not have asked a straight married guest to have gay sex with him. Gay sex always makes me laugh, even when I'm having it. For real, though, sometimes I have sex and it's like,
am I gay? Was I ever gay?
Not offered drugs and sex to his low-wage employees in exchange for better hours. Well, yes, but those are details. I'm focusing on the big picture. I'm on his side.
Sometimes just watching them eat every night makes me want to gouge my eyes out. The Lotus eaters.
Here, Armond is quoting the poem The Lotus Eaters by Alfred Tennyson, which in turn is referencing Homer's Odyssey, in which Odysseus speaks of arriving on an island inhabited by lotus eaters.
I was driven thence by foul winds for a space of 9 days upon the sea, but on the 10th day we reached the land of the lotus eaters, who live on a food that comes from a kind of flower. Here we landed to take in fresh water. Our crews got their midday meal on the shore near the ships. When they had eaten and drunk, I sent 2 of my company to see what manner of men the people of the place might be. And they had a 3rd man under them. They started at once and went about among the lotus eaters, who did them no hurt, but gave them to eat of the lotus, which was so delicious that those who ate of it left off caring about home, and did not even want to go back and say what had happened to them, but were for staying and munching lotus with the lotus eaters without thinking further of their return. Nevertheless, though, they wept bitterly. I forced them back to the ships and made them fast under the benches.
These lotus eaters, as Homer describes them, became apathetic to the world beyond the island after eating from the flower. Not only apathetic, but almost in a seductive trance, ignoring any and all duty and responsibility, desiring only to consume more. Do I need to explain the analogy Mike White is making? Too bad, I'm doing it anyway. Armond, and more importantly White, is arguing that obscene amounts of wealth, being in that top 1%, that top 0.1%, essentially strands you on a remote island, separated from the rest of humanity, and imbues you with an apathetic attitude toward anything other than your own wealth. To bring it back to Lost, imagine if they just started eating from the lotus flowers and ignored the smoke monster and the others. Boring ass show. White, through Armond, is issuing a warning not only to those currently on the island, but to those striving to become lotus eaters themselves. It's a spiritual dead end. Your humanity will be chipped away at by your worst instincts, and soon enough, you won't even remember or care for the world beyond the island. This moment in episode 5 is Armand's full realization. These guests aren't worthy of his humanity because they're blind to it. He's also on the island, but not as a lotus eater. He's a lotus harvester, the one who brings the food from the plant to their lips while denied a taste himself. And once you realize that, why not try to just burn it all down? Armond, like Belinda and Kai and Rachel, ultimately rejected his station in life. Belinda attempted to climb the ladder through more traditional means, Kai through robbery and violence, Rachel through a tearful monologue, and Armond through copious drug use and shitting in a guest's luggage. They all attempted to wiggle out and failed. Belinda is right where she was at the beginning. Rachel made her Faustian bargain. Kai is in jail with no hopes for restitution for his family. And Armond is dead. The only person who successfully managed to escape was Quinn, someone in the upper class with the means to do so. The White Lotus consistently engages the viewer's sympathy for its wealthy characters. Nicole being cheated on and treated as the family villain, Tanya's genuine pain and loneliness. Even Shane is like low-key being gaslit by Armond, but Mike White never lets that sympathy outweigh or minimize the disproportionate harm wealth inequality has on the working class characters, while also avoiding treating those characters as perfect or innocent. In a time of severe wealth inequality, growing political divisions, and a global hunger for economic populism, it's notable to have a television series take a step back from
the discourse
and give a sort of bird's eye analysis on how our current socioeconomic structures impact everyone on the ladder. The White Lotus, both the hotel and the series itself, is a microcosm of America today, a diverse set of characters with differing views, characters with real issues, relationships, wants, and needs, irrespective of their economic position or political views. And as Mike White so precisely examines over these 6 episodes, the ultimate divider is wealth. And that division, he argues, is a zero-sum game. The Mossbachers can't have this life-changing vacation without Kai's family having their land stolen. Tanya can't have her breakthrough without Belinda being left behind. And Shane can't get his room without Armand's body dying in the bathtub. Because Armond was the only one who successfully withheld something from the ruling class, and therefore had to pay the ultimate price. Rachel will go back to Shane, Olivia won't redistribute all her wealth, Nicole will continue thinking she's part of the solution and not the problem, Paula won't face the consequences of what she did to Kai, Tanya will go on to Sicily with her new husband, Belinda will continue giving salt scrubs and seaweed facials, Armond is dead, and Quinn will most likely not make it to Fiji, but at least he tried getting off the island. God, and then there's season 2.
Mike, I do feel really lucky that I get to play this game with you.
Oh my God, Allison. I feel the same.